Hello, dear friends. I'm Roland Gunter, homeopath on Vancouver Island, and this is a second video about dealing with emotions. If you haven't watched the first one, I really recommend that you go to the first one and start with that because these videos, one practice builds up on the one before. So there's also a certain sequence, and when we start practicing everything at the same time, it's probably end up in confusion and you're not going to be very successful. So, next step about emotions. And thank you for watching that again. Thank you for your commitment to yourself. Yeah, I will remind you over and over again, this is not about something in the world, this is about you. Yeah, and about your commitment to yourself and reclaiming parts of yourself that you might have left behind somewhere for good reason. Sometimes we go in the past through difficult things and have to shut down emotions that are overwhelming, that are simply too much. We could not, in a meaningful way, keep living or growing up as children, especially in constantly having these fear or whatever. And so there's a good reason sometimes that we shut certain things down or that we are sensitive to certain things. So now we want to reclaim these things that we left behind, wanted to get rid of something because they are part of our beauty, they're part of our wholeness, and there's no health without having all these parts together again. And this means what it is. This is what it means to be fully in life and connected with myself. And then I also can be connected with the people and with life around me. Now, this time there's something we talk about the age of emotion. And you might ask me, what's that? When I'm upset. What does that mean, age of emotion? Well, what that means is when we're getting triggered in our life and, for example, a fear or anger shows up or shame or whatever, and it's very strong, there's a high likelihood and possibility that it has not much to do with today, but that it's a memory that the body carries for me to a time past. Let me give you an example. There was somebody here, a client, told me about grieving about the death of a son. And it has been 6 years ago. And she said, I'm still grieving like a month after his death. And I listened and I watched and I listened. And finally I asked, who did you lose when you were a child? And there was a silence. And then she said, when I was 5 years old, I lost a 3-year-old brother. That means the grief, the age is 3 years old. Why is that? When something happens in our childhood that is overwhelming, like this grief of the little sister about her little brother, the parents were overwhelmed with grief. There was not enough time or inner ability to be with the grief of the daughter. Yeah, and so the daughter was overwhelmed and had to shut that grief down. In that moment, something inside freezes. And it's not, usually emotions have a flow. Like native people say, emotions are like the water, they have to flow. Yeah. And water that gets stagnant, that stays the same, it's getting unhealthy. So emotions have to flow. If they don't flow, that means it's frozen. There was something where they got stuck, something where it was overwhelmed, where the system, our emotional system was overwhelmed, and bang. When later on in life there's another grievance, like this son passed away, then this new grief falls like snow on a frozen river, falls like snow on frozen water, on ice. And what does it do? It doesn't move. That's why every normal grief has a movement. And 6 years later, it's not like a few months after the problem, after the loss. It's simply not. A, grieving is a process. It's movement. It's alive. And when it's stuck and it stays the same, then it's clear there's something older underneath. And in order to deal with this grief now in our life, we need to include the grief that we were overwhelmed with as a child. Does that make sense? I hope so. And the same is true for our fears. When we, very often as children, sometimes we're not met, yeah, in our fears. So there's no adult there. And as children, we cannot regulate our emotions ourselves. It's not possible. Yeah? Children need an adult to be with them and to regulate and to digest fear and anger and what else. Yeah? And if there is no relationship, we get stuck as children in that. And when later on in life these things are triggered, then we need to go back to where did it start and include that and attune to that. Let me give you an example. One of my emotional wounds is a fear of anger. I was afraid of my angry dad, very afraid. So today, if somebody, especially somebody close to me, is angry at me, I can get really afraid. But this is not the adult Roland, yeah? This is a little guy, 3-year-old Roland, or the 2-year-old little Roland in me. So when that gets triggered and it's really strong and I cannot deal with the methods I described in the first video, that means I need to add another tool in our toolbox in dealing with emotions. And this is what we talk now. So I need to go back and really feel that. Again, I feel the emotion, for example, the fear. I feel where it is in my body. I spend time with it, breathe into it for a while. And then I ask, how old am I? How old is that fear? How old is that emotion? And maybe it's very little, very small. And maybe it's 4 or 5 years old or whatever it is. So, and then I attune to that little one in myself, maybe to the little girl that you've been or the little boy that you've been in that age, and turn towards that little one and say, hey, little one, you're welcome. I know you're afraid and I'm here with you. And that little one needs to hear all the things that a little child should hear most every day of his life. Like, I love you. And it's okay to be afraid because I'm with you. And you're not alone. And you don't have to do it alone. I will always be here for you. And you're beautiful. And I really appreciate you being here with me and sharing your fear with me. You know, all these things and make it appropriate for that age. You talk with a 2-year-old in a different way than you talk with an 8-year-old. Yeah. So give them these messages that he or she would have needed back then, and there was nobody that gave him these messages. Yeah. So sometimes they are called the good parenting sentences. Yeah. And just attune to that age, and whatever somebody in that age needs, tell him that. Like A 7-year-old, yeah, telling, I love you. It's not about what you do, it's who you are. This is what I love. So you don't need to effort to please me in doing things. I love you anyway. I might not always love what you do, but I love you. I'm with you. Things like that. You don't say that to a 2-year-old, yeah, but to an older child that needs to know this. Yeah, I love you, even if you make choices that I don't always agree with. Yeah. So, and what I recommend is maybe in that age that you find when you tune into yourself and find, okay, this age, maybe find in your old pictures a picture of that age. Put it in a frame, something like here, this is the year and a half old or 15-month-old little Roland, yeah. And when this little guy gets triggered, I take this picture. It helps me to presence that age. It helps me to attune to meet that age in myself, and then I communicate with that. Why is that so crucial? Because in that age, like I said, we cannot digest emotions alone. So we need somebody to be with us. And we now, as adults, need to be with this little one that didn't have that. I think that's it for today. And thank you again for listening. Thank you for watching that. And thank you for practicing with me. This is how we change the world. This is how we include more of the world into our love. Because the world loves when the world changes when we can love what is. Not these conditions. Yes, I love you, but you should be different. We heard that so often. It just makes us angry and makes us more of what's not being liked or whatever. So that's not working. To be with and say, I love you. Also when you're afraid, I love myself. When I'm in fear or when I'm angry, I love you. I love myself and it's welcome. Let's practice that together. It's a good practice. Have fun with it and just be happy and open to what you discover there and enjoy your growing wholeness and inner completeness. Thank you for watching. See you next time.